Now I'm going to go back to our site-specific safety plan, and we're going to talk about the very next important definition, and that is of an incident. So the definition of an incident is an unplanned, undesired occurrence which caused or had the potential to cause injury, illness, and/or property damage. That goes back to the question on the daily subcontractor sign-in sheet that says, were you injured while on site? It's considered an incident, okay? We do not want anybody to get injured while on site, which is why we're having a safety meeting this morning. But things happen, and if someone is injured while on site, or if we have had property damage, if during the course of our work we accidentally busted a pipe and we have water spewing everywhere, that's considered property damage. And at that point, we have to take care of the water that's spewing everywhere with this property damage, take care of the emergency situation, stop the water, and then we have to fill out an incident report. Whose responsibility do you think it is to fill out incident reports? Whose responsibility would that be to fill out an incident report?
The competent person?
That's right, because the competent person is responsible for not only identifying hazards and making sure that the workers are safe, they're responsible for ensuring that all of the paperwork is filled out. That competent person, when we have questions, DSW Homes has a question, the auditors have a question, we're going to go to the competent person because they're competent, okay? All right, now, when there is an incident, I have picked up our third binder on site. And this binder is called the Site-Specific Reports. So when we open up our Site-Specific Report binder, we're going to see another table of contents. And this table of contents tells us what types of reports are located and associated with each tab. So when I open up our Site-Specific Reports, the very first tab is Environmental Reports. Under tab number 1, this is where you're going to find your reports for asbestos, for lead-based paint. Y'all need to know that before you ever arrived on site, unless you are the asbestos abatement contractor, all asbestos has already been abated, okay? But you also need to be aware of the fact that during the normal course of construction activity, we may come across suspect asbestos materials that may not have been abated before the work began. And in that case, you need to contact the DSW Homes project manager, and the DSW Homes project manager will come over and will help you determine whether the material that you are looking at had been previously tested and, if necessary, abated. You do not have to make that determination. DSW Homes project manager will make that determination. Now, to contact your DSW Homes project manager, each and every job site is going to have an emergency contact poster posted on it. Okay? When you're looking at the emergency contact poster, your DSW Homes project manager for that site that you're standing on today is going to be at the very bottom of this contact list. And I happen to be looking at Will Gruby. So Will is the construction superintendent for DSW Homes, and his telephone number is right here, along with his email address. So your emergency contact poster, which is going to be posted on your job sites, will have the information on who's the construction manager. You may already know that, but just in case you don't. Just in case you need to tell one of the workers, hey, call Will. He says, I don't know Will's number. You can tell him, go look, it's on the poster. That's Will's number. So Will help you determine whether there's any asbestos that needs to be taken care of. Now, tab number 2 tells me these are our incident reports. So when an incident happens, an injury, an illness, or property damage, of course unplanned, an incident report must be filled out. Now when we go to tab 2, there are enough incident report forms to report 2 incidents. Okay? It ends with a blue sheet of paper. And if we just take it from the beginning and start filling out the paperwork, we're going to have this incident reported in no time. Let's talk about an injured employee. The first thing that needs to happen when we have an injury is the injured person needs to be taken care of. So as a competent person, we're going to say, oh my goodness, you got an injury, are you okay? Be able to determine the severity of the injury. If the injury is a minor first aid injury, we have first aid kits located on every job site. We'll be able to take care of and bandage a minor injury. Okay? Now, if that injured person has a more severe injury and actually needs medical attention, on each and every job site, we're going to have a poster posted with the map and driving directions to the nearest medical facility. So when you're facing someone that's injured, you'll know where they can go because we've got it posted there for you. Okay? So once we have taken care of the initial emergency and we've made sure that the water stopped going everywhere and we've made sure that the injured employee is okay, we're going to call Will. In this instance, call the DSW Homes project manager. Let Will know that we've had an incident. Will is immediately going to say, is everything okay? And you're going to say, yeah, everything's fine. He's going to say, good, I'm on my way. When Will gets that phone call, he's going to immediately call the DSW Homes safety department, our site safety manager. His name's Mike. Y'all will meet him. If you ain't got eyeglasses on, you're really going to meet Mike because he will tell you, put those on. All right. So Mike will say, cool, I'm on my way. Everybody okay? Yeah, I'm on my way. Mike's going to immediately call the construction manager, Lero, or SLS in Staten Island. The construction manager is going to immediately call DDC, and everybody's going to converge on your construction site. If they're not already there and may have witnessed the whole thing anyways. Because remember I said they can be there all day, every day. Once everybody gets there, they're going to want to start collecting reports. So as the competent person, the very first report that you need to make sure gets filled out is called the Workers' Incident Report Form. The Workers' Incident Report Form is filled out by the worker who was injured or who created the property damage. Okay? This form is 2 pages long, front and back. Okay? The form has to be filled out completely and it requires a signature and a date. Okay? The next report form is the Supervisor's Incident Investigation Report Form. Who do you think has to fill out the Supervisor's Incident Report Form? Who's in charge of that job that day? The competent person. Okay? Competent person has to fill out this incident report form. It's also 2 pages long, front and back. All information that is asked needs to be provided. In the middle section of this form, it asks us to list the names and telephone numbers of witnesses. Any witness that witnessed the incident, we must make sure that we get their name and telephone numbers and put it on this report. Okay? the report form gives us enough for 4 witnesses. If there were 6 workers on site that witnessed the incident, we're not just going to stop with the 4, we're going to list all 6, and we can list the additional 2 on a separate sheet of paper, or we can just write it at the bottom of the sheet. We must list the names and contact numbers of all witnesses on the sheet. Sometimes there's an injury or an incident that wasn't witnessed by anybody. I went to one last week. It was a minor incident, a minor injury, but there were no witnesses. It is important for us to write where it asks for witness names and numbers. It's important for us to write that down. No witnesses. We cannot put NA. NA means it's not applicable. And during a program review of this incident report, one of the things that we have to include is the subcontractor daily sign-in sheet. And if we had an incident and we wrote NA, not applicable, they're going to call us and say, how can it not be applicable when your daily subcontractor sign-in sheet says there was 10 people there? Okay, so the appropriate entry would have been no witnesses. Now, for each and every witness that's listed, they have to fill out a witness incident report. It's called the witness statement report form. Now your binder is going to give you enough for 4 witnesses. If there were more than 4 witnesses that actually witnessed the incident, they can make their statement on a separate sheet of paper. Every witness that witnesses the incident has to prepare a witness statement. It's also a 2-page form, front and back, requires a signature and a date on the back. Okay? The next set of forms that we have in here is called the DSW Homes Incident Investigation Report. Now that report is filled out by the DSW Homes project manager and or site safety manager. That report is 6 pages long. Okay? As part of the DSW Homes' incident report, they are going to need to collect from you, the competent person, all of the reports that you saw were created. Okay? That then becomes one final incident investigation report. Are there any questions in regards to incidents?
No.
Or the reporting? Look, we don't want anybody to get injured, but when it happens, we got to make a report. Even if it's minor, we got to make a report, okay? Perfect. Now, I'm still in my site-specific report folder, and there's just a couple of other tabs I want to draw to your attention. Under tab number 4 has what is called cut and cap letters. Now, cut and cap letters are given by the utility company when they have cut and capped utilities. So it is in tab number 4 that you would find a letter from Con Ed that said, we have turned off the electricity and removed the meter. Under tab number 4 is where you're going to find a letter from National Grid, the gas company, that says, we have turned off the gas and we have removed the meter. We have capped that gas line. Why would it be important for a competent person to know whether electricity or gas has been turned off? Go ahead, Felipe.
Their work might require that they had, scaffolding or any type that, they might be working next to a power line, or they might be doing some demolition, and they could hit a water line, or they could hit, any kind of cable that is, has a lot of electricity running through it.
That's right. And at that point, we may have put our workers in harm's way. And so as a competent person, remember, one of the things that you have to do is to be able to identify known or predictable hazards. And of course, someone being electrocuted by an active electric line, that could be considered a predictable hazard. And it's up to us to eliminate that first. So instead of having to walk around the job site saying, oh gee, I wonder, go right to tab number 4 and you can stop wondering, because it's going to tell you. Your letter's going to be right in there. Under tab number 5. Under tab number 5, we have toolbox talks and safety topics. Now, each and every worker on a daily basis must participate in a toolbox talk, and the participation must be documented by a sign-in sheet. So under tab number 5, we have provided a variety of topics to cover during your toolbox talks. This first one is construction hazards. We've got one for protecting workers from heat stress. We've got portable ladders. We've got electrical safety. The competent person needs to ensure that all workers have had a daily toolbox talk, a safety meeting, before they begin the work. And that toolbox talk should focus on hazards that the workers may be subjected to that day. I'm thinking of last week when it was really hot out there. A good toolbox talk for that day would have been heat stress. So each one of these safety topics has a title. This one is portable generator safety. If you're working on generators today, that's a good toolbox talk to have. Once you have your toolbox talk, everybody has to sign that they participated. It's also under tab 5. Everybody is going to print the date, their name, their signature, and the company that they're with. Okay? The competent person is going to ensure that the safety topic covered is listed on this line along with the applicant number and the address. This safety topic covered is very important. Do you think that these forms are audited?
Yes.
They are. They are audited. And occasionally, I will get an email that says, hey Sue, please provide the sign-in sheets for the toolbox talks that happened at 56 Eaton for the last 2 weeks. And don't forget to include a copy of the topic covered for each day. So when we're writing the topic covered up here, we cannot make it up. That topic covered has to match the actual topic that you covered for the day. Construction hazard. Okay? Because I'm asked to submit a copy of this and the sign-in sheet. Now, you all have been in the construction industry for a long time, and you probably have your own library of toolbox talks that are specific to the work that you do, and it's okay to have those toolbox talks. We want you to have those toolbox talks. And we want you to document that all of the workers participated by they signed the sign-in sheet. What we ask, though, is that if you have and provide your own toolbox topic, that you simply put a copy of it in the topics covered here, so that whenever I get that email in 2 weeks that says sign-in sheet and topic covered, I have your topic covered. Okay? Any questions in regards to that? Very important. Awesome. I'm going to go to tab number 6 now, and number 7, because this is the tab that has your daily checklists. So each and every competent person for each and every subcontractor must fill out a general safety checklist. before the work begins. Okay? So you can pull out a blank general safety checklist and fill it out and then put it back in the binder. The auditors are going to make sure that subcontractors have filled out that general safety checklist. I have another little handout for you. You just take one and pass it back. Just take one and pass it back. This is your general safety checklist. This has to be filled out every day by the competent person. You'll put the address, the date of the inspection, the time inspected by the person, that's your name, your signature, and a brief description of the work being performed or to be performed. Okay? You will then read each question and answer it honestly. And if during the review of this checklist you find items that need to be taken care of, you can write the actions that you took under the comments and actions section. Okay? So if I'm looking here, let's turn it over onto the back side. The very first question on the back side, because it's a 2-page report, is, are projecting nail heads, points, and other impalement hazards present? You answer yes or no. This is your checklist to help ensure that you are not allowing your workers to work in hazardous conditions. Okay? If there are projecting nail heads present, you would say yes, and a projecting nail head has the potential to injure an employee if an employee ran into that nail head. So you would answer it honestly, yes, they're there, I see them there. You would have the workers or yourself take care of that hazard. You could bend that nail down, and under comments, actions taken, you could write, we removed nail heads. Okay? Are there any questions in regards to the daily checklist? Each and every subcontractor has to fill this out. It is part of the competent person's responsibility to ensure that they are not allowing their workers to work in hazardous conditions. That checklist has to be filled out and has to be placed in the binder. Now there are going to be other inspections that are required by OSHA depending on the task that is being performed. For instance, OSHA requires that all employers inspect excavated areas before they allow the workers to enter. And on our assignments here where we're elevating homes, we have excavated areas. And if your workers are entering an excavated area, OSHA requires that you perform an inspection of that area before you allow your workers to enter. And so therefore, in your report folder, we have blank excavation inspections for your use in filling out before you allow your workers to enter that excavated site. And so that is in your binder as well. Other inspections that OSHA may require, ladders. Competent person has to inspect a ladder before the work begins. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is required to be inspected by a competent person each and every day before a worker is allowed to get on that scaffolding. And that inspection sticker, it's called a tag, has got to be present on that scaffolding. And it has to be dated today. Okay? So we've talked about scaffolding. Got to have a 4-hour user to be on the scaffolding. You got to have your training certification on you. The erector of that scaffolding has to have a 32-hour scaffolding erector training certification. And then that scaffolding has to be inspected daily before workers are allowed to get on it. So if we have an auditor that pulls up to our job site and they're looking across the street at your job site, they see people on the scaffolding, they already know their plan of action. They already know it. And here's what it is. They're going to approach the site and they're going to look for a blue armband because they're going to want to know who's the competent person here, because they are going to have questions. Okay? Once they determine who that person is and where they're at, they're probably going to go right over to the scaffolding. And they're going to want to see that that scaffolding was inspected today because there's people on it. So there's 3 different tags that you'll see on a scaffolding. A red tag means that the scaffolding is unfit for use. And there better not be any people on a red tagged scaffold because it's unfit for use. There is a yellow tag that may be located on the scaffolding, and the yellow indicates that the scaffolding doesn't quite meet OSHA certifications or specifications, but if the workers had 100% fall protection, it could be used. And then there's a green tag. The competent person puts the green tag on there. Everybody, it's good to go. Scaffolding is safe for use. Okay? It's got to have a date on there. It's got to have an inspection sticker on there each and every day, especially when people are on there. Okay? So once that auditor sees, okay, it's a green tag, we're good here, they're going to go right to the competent person and they're going to say, hey, I see you got 6 guys up on that scaffolding. I need to verify that they've had the proper training. And at that point, when you're asked by an auditor to provide the training for your workers, it's no big deal. You're going to provide that information. Just look up there on the scaffolding and say, hey guys, need you to just take a break, come on down. Let's see your training certifications. Okay? So scaffolding has to be inspected daily. Your ladders have to be inspected. General safety checklist every day for every job site. If you're working on 2 job sites today, you'd fill out 1 for each binder. Okay? Are there any questions in regards to the reports and the report binder? Incidents? Perfect. Put this back where it belongs. Look what's happening. We're done with 2. We're getting there, y'all. Thank you for being patient. I am back to our site-specific safety plan. After we know the definitions of the competent person and the incidents, it's going to give us the scope of work. It is also going to give us the contact information of the construction superintendent. It's going to have my telephone number on there. It has an emergency contact list. This looks familiar because it is posted on the fence. Now here's something I need for you all to keep in mind when you're on your construction sites. This is basically how a construction site and a fence is going to be set up. We can never block the fire extinguisher. We can never put our materials and stack them up so that that fire extinguisher is blocked. We can never block the emergency contact information. We can never block the first aid kit. These are important items that need to be accessible at all times during the construction. Okay? Now you all are going to see that some of our job sites are pretty tight, and there is limited places to stack materials. And when you are determining where you're going to be putting your materials inside the fence and on the job site, if the only place for you to stack your materials is located right in the area where the existing emergency information is posted, it's okay. We can simply move these to a different location where they can be accessible, and then we can start using that area there to stack our materials. Okay? So our site-specific safety plan, if for some reason somebody, not you or not your workers, blocked this and an emergency happens, you can always go to your site-specific safety plan and it's going to have the exact same information. There's your map and driving directions to the nearest medical facility. The rest of this site-specific safety plan, there's about 4 pages or 5 pages. It goes into the details of the requirements for site-specific safety. Now, we have already talked about a lot of these, and so we're pretty much done. Let me just review here. We talked about toolbox meetings. We talked about sign-in sheets. What is the basic PPE required at all times?
Hard hat.
Yep.
Safety glasses.
Yep.
High visibility vest.
Yep.
And boots.
Work boots. That's right. And any other PPE that may be required for specific tasks. Very good. Thank you. Now, let's talk about equipment and materials that are being delivered to the work site. If you have called your vendor and ordered some materials to be delivered to your job site, you need to let your vendor know that before they bring your materials to the job site, they must stop by the DSW Homes office and let us know where they are going. This is a very important step that we cannot look over. We cannot skip this step. Once your delivery driver comes here to our office, we are going to immediately know that a flagger may be necessary to help offload these materials. Okay? So any materials, lumber, dirt, concrete, they all have to funnel through this office first. Someone from DSW Homes will go do the job site with them to ensure that there is a flagger on site, because in New York City, all movement of materials and equipment on a public right-of-way has to be done by the use of a New York City licensed flagger. Okay? All materials have to be offloaded with the use of a New York City flagger so that they can stop traffic and they can keep an eye out for pedestrians and allow pedestrians and vehicular traffic to safely navigate through our construction sites. Now, all trucks and dumpsters and materials, when they are in the street, they have to be coned and barricaded. So we have our cones set up here, okay? And there's 2 different ways that you can do some barricades. We've got a cone bar here that connects 2 cones, and it has barricaded our truck and materials. Or we could use 2 cones and some caution tape. The important thing is that they are coned and barricaded. You could even use traffic barrels. Your company is responsible for providing their own MPT devices. Your company has to provide your own cones and your own barricades. So I'm looking at this dumpster here. DSW Homes owns this dumpster while it is on this site. And we are going to ensure that our dumpster is adequately protected by installing cones and a barricade. Okay? DSW Homes' cones say DSW Homes. Your cones may say your company's names. Okay? If you have a support truck, this is your work truck. All work trucks, all support vehicles must be coned and barricaded. Okay? If DSW Homes is out on site and they see that your support truck does not have the required cones and barricades, we're going to give you and your company two options. You can either get the required MPT devices, or DSW Homes can provide those for you. But it's important that you know that DSW Homes is not going to be providing those things for free. And you'll have the choice. For us to supply a cone or barricade, it's $150 each. I promise you, it is much cheaper for your company and you as the competent person to make sure you got your cones on your truck before you come out, because you can get them for like $10. I buy mine in bulk and I get them for $10. But if I have to provide it, it's $150. Okay? This caution tape here, y'all don't want to know how much that caution tape is. $75. You can get a case of 20 for like $40. So make sure before you leave the shop that you have the right MPT devices in order for you to meet your responsibility for ensuring that all support trucks and materials are coned and barricaded. If DSW Homes has to supply MPT devices, or if you have a worker on the job site that does not have their hard hat on them, you can either ask your worker to leave, or you can provide them with a hard hat, or DSW Homes, if we find that they're on site and they don't have one, we're going to give you an option of letting us provide the hard hat for you for $160 each. So y'all don't want to pay $160 for your hard hats. My whole main point is you all need to make sure that you have the adequate PPE for your workers. OSHA requires that all employers provide the required PPE. Okay? You have to supply your own MPT devices. DSW Homes is not going to supply your hammers and your trowels and your saws. Consider your MPT devices part of your toolbox. If DSW Homes has to supply any information or any supplies for your company, and or you are found in violation of any of the safety requirements that we are talking about today, DSW Homes will issue your company safety violation non-compliance notices. This is that important. All right, so let's talk about these materials. If we are storing materials on a sidewalk, all materials must be coned and barricaded. Okay? Now, we cannot place any materials on the sidewalk or on the street. We cannot even place a dumpster on the street or a concrete truck on the street without having a permit. Okay? On your job sites, you are going to see that on the exterior, on the outside of the fence, we have job permits that are posted on the fence. And you're going to see there are probably 15 or 20 of them. Because for each item, we have to have a permit. Yes, we have a permit for the dumpster. we would have to have a permit for the sidewalk if we're going to store materials on the sidewalk. We have to have a permit for the pump truck that's delivering your concrete. Before you call and get supplies delivered, you need to make sure that you're allowed to place it there. And you can do that by looking at the permits. Okay? It'll say concrete pump truck. It will say sidewalk crossing. I do not know why they named the permit that allows us to store materials on the sidewalk crossing, but that's what it is. And if you do not see a permit for the materials or your equipment, please call the DSW Homes project manager and say, hey, Will, I'm going to be having some materials delivered and I don't see a permit for it. I'm going to have my concrete truck out there and the permit's there, but it's expired. And we'll make sure that we get the permit on that fence, because none of us wants to receive a violation from DOT for not having the required permits. Okay? When we have a permit that allows us to store materials on the sidewalk, we cannot stack materials on the sidewalk greater than 5 foot. We cannot. With each permit that we receive, they have stipulations that go along with each permit. And on the sidewalk crossing permit, it tells us you cannot stack materials greater than 5 foot on the sidewalk. It also tells us that it has to be coned and barricaded when unattended. And it tells us that we have to have a 5 foot walking area to allow walkers to work, or to allow pedestrians to walk down the sidewalk when we're not there. Okay? We have to abide by all permit stipulations. It tells us right here, flag person must be provided to stop pedestrian and or vehicle traffic while lifting materials. Also, when crossing sidewalk in conjunction with crossing sidewalk permits. What does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. You have to have your trained flagger available to escort pedestrians as they are walking down the sidewalk past the construction site. Okay? We can never put the general public in harm's way, ever. And the last thing that we want a pedestrian to do is approach our job site on the sidewalk and say, oh my goodness, there's no way I can get by there. And so they come out here into the street. What happens, or what possibly could happen when we force someone out into the street? Someone could get injured. And that cannot happen. Okay? Here's another thing that we cannot do. We cannot create trip hazards for pedestrians. If this truck has extension cords or hoses, or if this is your concrete truck, you got your trough going in to get into that job site, we must ensure that there is an escort that can safely escort that pedestrian to the other side of that materials. Okay? Are there any questions in regards to flaggers' responsibilities? Any questions in regards to cones and barricades on our support, on our materials and equipment? Good. One final thing on equipment and materials. We can never leave equipment and materials unattended. Ever. You do not want me to send you an email of a picture of your huge demo saw on the sidewalk and nobody around. That puts the general public in harm's way. Okay? We never want to put the general public in harm's way, and we as the competent person always want to ensure that the workers are not in harm's way, and we would reduce the amount of hazards that they're exposed to. Job hazard analysis review. Every worker, before the work begins, must review a job hazard analysis. And DSW Homes has provided a library of job hazard analyses for you to use to review with your workers before the work begins. Your job hazard analyses are part of the site-specific safety plan. Your JHAs have tabbed indexes that will tell you which JHAs are available. So when I'm looking at this library, I see carpentry, I see concrete masonry, flooring installation, landscaping, jackhammer. You as a competent person know what your work is today, and you need to make sure that your workers have reviewed the JHA. So I'm just going to say we're carpentry today. We're doing carpentry. I can use the tab index and I can go straight to the carpentry JHA. And when we open up the carpentry JHA, it is going to list the subtasks for carpentry, the hazards, and the control. And so, just real briefly, let's look at how a JHA works. The task is carpentry. The subtask is located in this column. And I am just going to look at the first subtask. This subtask for carpentry is working in or near excavation trench sites. The hazard associated with that subtask is overall safety and stability of trench on daily basis and fall hazards into trenches and washout. The control for eliminating that hazard is before allowing workers to enter trenched or excavated sites, competent person reviews the stability of the site prior to allowing entry. Okay? So that's how a job hazard works. You're going to see in here slips, trips, and falls. You know that's one of the main focus of OSHA's. It's a hazard. It's going to tell you what to do to eliminate the hazard. The competent person will ensure that all workers before the work begin has reviewed the JHA. And if the competent person finds that there were additional hazards that were not previously addressed, it is the competent person's responsibility to create a living document. And a living document is just a means in which you can add a new subtask, add the new hazard, and add the control option that you want all your workers to take to mitigate that hazard. Your living document is then going to flow right into the sign-in sheet that documents that all workers reviewed the JHA. All workers need to date it, print their name, put a signature, and the company. All workers before the work begins must review the JHA that is specific to the task that they are performing. If you're installing siding, you would review the installing siding JHA. Okay? All workers have to document that they had that review. And these are audited on a daily basis because They want to make sure that the workers are aware of what the potential hazards are and that they understand and know what is expected of them to eliminate those hazards. Are there any questions on the JHA reviews? No? Cool. Housekeeping. Look, it's important. Our job sites are very tight quarters, and it's important that we clean up our job sites throughout the day in order to eliminate hazards. Not only are we going to clean up periodically throughout the day, at the end of the day we need to make sure that the entire job site is clean and it's left without any hazards for the next subcontractor that gets assigned that job. Smoking, no smoking on any of our construction sites. It's against the New York City laws. You will be fined if you are determined to be smoking, not by us, but by the fire department can issue you and your employer a fine. And DSW Homes, if we find you smoking on our job sites, we can issue a safety violation and non-compliance notice. And when these start adding up for your employer, they may be fined as well. Okay, so don't do it. It's that easy. No smoking. Fire safety. Please do not remove the fire extinguisher. Do not borrow our fire extinguisher. For your portable generators, you must have a fire extinguisher sitting next to it. If you have a gas-powered generator, you must have a fire extinguisher sitting next to it. And your fire extinguisher that you are providing must have a current inspection sticker on there. It must. Generators must have a drip pan underneath them when they are in use. If we fail to have those things, we will be written up, and it's called a deviation. We will receive a deviation from the safety department at the program and from New York City DDC. Okay? Let's see. Let's talk about electrical safety and power tools. All of your tools must be operated according to the manufacturer's instructions. Okay? In addition to that, you need to inspect all of your tools before you allow your workers to use them. If any of your power cords are frayed, they need to be removed from the site. Okay? Let's see, ground fault circuit interrupters are required on these construction sites. You must have a ground fault circuit interrupter attached to your generator. And your power tools must have a ground fault circuit interrupter, a GFCI. We talked about PPE. We talked about ladders. We talked about scaffolding. We talked about MPT devices are required to be on job sites. Let's talk about storing your materials inside the job site. We can never stack our materials onto the fence. If we got a shipment of lumber, we cannot stack our materials on that fence. We cannot lean our ladders up on that fence. If we are excavating, we cannot pile the dirt onto that fence. What happens when we start putting materials and dirt on that fence, it weakens the fence and has the potential for that fence to fall over onto the sidewalk. And we never know what's on the other side of the fence, and we never want that fence to fall down. So all materials must be neatly stacked, lying down in front of the fence. And don't butt it right up against the fence. Give it about 8 inches out to stack your materials. Okay? Excavation sites. You're going to see a bunch of excavation sites over here. You cannot store materials within 2 foot of an excavated site. Okay? You have to allow a walking area around that excavation. You do not want to have your materials stacked right at the edge of that excavation site and then they fall over into and on top of the workers inside that excavation site. So that's really important as well. Point out this canister holds the design specifications and the plans for the job site. Okay? This canister contains all of your plans, and all of these plans need to be on site and in good condition at all times. And they're there for your use to ensure that you're building and doing your job according to the plans and specifications. We want you to use them, but we also want you to make sure that you put them back in the canister, please, because other people need to use them. And when we have inspectors and auditors on site, they're definitely going to go to the plans to make sure we're doing the job according to those plans and specifications. So they're there for your use. We just want to make sure that you put them back. I believe that I have covered everything. Does anybody have any questions? No? I am really glad that you all took the opportunity to come in here and spend this morning with me. Safety is very important. At the end of the day, we want you all to be able to go home and enjoy your family. And your family wants to see you come home safely each and every day. So we appreciate your attention to following the safety regulations that have been outlined. Now, what I'm handing out here is a safety orientation training documentation. I also gave you a pin. I need for you to return both the safety training documentation and the pin to me so that we can document you've had the training and so that I can let the next fellas tomorrow use the pin. So let's look at it. It's a 2-page document. I'm on page 1. In the upper left-hand corner, it asks for you to print your name. So I need for everybody to print their name right there in the upper left-hand corner. On the upper right-hand corner, I need for you to date this form, and today's date is 8/3/16. 8/3/16. Now, what we have is a table here, and it lists all of the safety topics that we covered today. And I need for everyone to initial in the right-hand column, I need for you to initial understanding the topics that we covered. The first box for the topic covered was the site-specific safety plan. We went over the emergency contact information. We went over incident reporting. We know about first aid kits, and we know where the closest medical facility is. We talked about general site safety and housekeeping rules. Does anybody have any questions in regards to those? I need for you to please initial that blocks next to that topic covered. The next topic that we covered were the daily sign-in sheet binders. We know that everybody must sign in and out daily. We know that the competent person has to be designated on that form, and we know that all workers must write their own information. Any questions? No. Perfect. I need for you to please initial that. We talked about the next topic, which was the job hazard analyses and toolbox talks. We know that those things have to happen before the work begins. Okay? We also know that the competent person must assess current site conditions and create living document if necessary. We know that the competent person must continually evaluate and mitigate hazards throughout the course of the day. If everybody agrees with that, let's just initial that safety topic covered. The next topic was the competent person. We know exactly what the definition is, as written by OSHA, of what the competent person is. I need for you to initial that. We talked about minimum worker training qualifications. What is the minimum worker training qualification? Somebody can tell me real quick. Minimum training requirements. OSHA 10, that is correct. OSHA. We also know that based upon the tasks that we're performing, we will have to provide training documentation if we're flagging or using scaffolding, etc. If everybody is in agreement with that, we need to initial that box. We talked about the very important subject of protection of the general public and of the construction site. We know we have to obey all traffic laws. We know that our work areas have to be cordoned off with cones and barricades. We know that we have to provide a flagman as necessary. We also know that those construction fences need to be locked at all times when they are not in use. We do not want any little child going up into our construction site when we're not there. Okay, if everybody agrees with that, we can initial that and we can turn it over to page 2. Starts off with PPE. We know hard hat, reflective vest, eye protection, construction work boots, and any other PPE as required based on the task that we are performing. I need you to initial that. For fire protection and prevention, we know that there is no smoking on any DSW Homes job site at any time. Okay? We also know that we have to provide our own fire extinguishers with current inspection tags anytime we are operating gas-powered equipment. We did not talk about hot works policy and permits, but you need to know that if the work that you are performing requires a hot work permit, such as soldering or welding or cutting or torching. If you're a plumber, you might be sweating some pipes. That means you got your torch out. You must have a hot works permit. And in order for you to get a hot works permit, it's super simple. You just come to our office and we'll give you one. Now, when you are in need of a hot works permit, we're going to ask to see some training qualifications. In New York City, the fire department issues training certifications for individuals that are using torches or using a welder. You'll get a card. You have to get that through the fire department in New York City. In order for you to do torching operations, the person using the torch must be certified by the fire department, and you must have a fire guard. Fire guard is also certified by the fire department of New York City. If your work requires a hot works permit and you need more information in regards to that certification, just let us know, and then we'll walk you through those hot work permits that are required. For fire protection and prevention, no gas cans are allowed on any of our job sites at any time. We understand that your gas-fired generator requires gas. But what you need to do is, when you need to refuel that generator, you need to follow manufacturer's instructions before refueling and turn it off. And then get the gas can out of your truck, fill up your generator, and put your gas can back in your truck. It's that simple. No gas cans of any size or type on any of our job sites. Any questions in regards to fire prevention and protection? Awesome. I need you to initial fire protection and prevention. Housekeeping. We talked about housekeeping and how we need to clean it up daily, and for sure at the end of the day. Remember that all work areas and walkways have to remain free of construction debris. Okay? Dirt. Dirt cannot be offloaded onto the street without permits. We know that we can't put anything onto the street without permits. And we know that when we're having dirt delivered, they got to stop by our office first. And we'll make sure that the site is ready to receive those materials and supplies. I need you to initial housekeeping. Under general safety, we definitely talked about electrical safety and power tools. We talked about GFCIs, hand tools, fall protection, scaffolding ladders, Cranes and derricks, we didn't breach that. We haven't used that yet. Safety signs and safety banners, I need for everyone to initial the general safety. And then finally, I need for you to print your name and your signature. Give us your employer's name and the date. Okay? It's with your signature that you're certifying you understand what the site safety rules are, and you understand that there's a zero tolerance policy, and that you will abide by it. Finally, it asks a question, I have the following licenses and certifications. And if you would just put a check mark next to each training and certification that you have, that would be great. You OSHA 10, put a check mark there. If you've got a 30, check it. Site-specific scaffold user, if you've got that training, put that information in there. And so if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Other than that, I am done with you, and I really appreciate you coming in. If you have a job assignment that you need to get to today, I need for you to sign in to the sign-in sheet that lists where you're going to go work, and we will make sure that we get an escort to you. I need for you to make sure that you see Killian. He's got your picture ID and all of your training certifications. And he's going to give you your hard hat label inside your envelope. You need to make sure it's on your hard hat. One final thing in regards to hard hat labels. Now, when you work in Staten Island, you are going to have to go through another safety orientation that is given by SLS. Okay? When you go through SLS's safety orientation, they're going to give you a label to put on your hard hat. Okay? And that label must be on your hard hat. You will not have to suffer through my safety orientation again. Your safety orientation with DSW Homes is good wherever we work. All right? So I really appreciate you all coming in today. Thank you very much.